We have shorter times to production, so maybe we should make some more time for imagination. If we free our time up and we use that time to be more imaginative, then we can imagine how to be a little more unique again.
What's going to happen when the timeline is super short? Like when everyone is Zara, basically.
We can also think of it as making so much less.
I've never heard this argument before.
Do you think it's valid? That was pre-internet research. We would basically have like Marc Jacobs coming in or Anna Sui.
And they all came like sort of at the same time asking for the same things?
Per season and ask for similar things. Everybody can do what WGSN does on their own if you learn a few simple tools. And AI helps a lot.
That's the headline.
With that.
You're part of something called Future Days?
I call it like the Coachella of future thinking. All in this corner. Everybody has the same logo. The same sans serif bold, right? And like they all look like coffee shops. It's a long-term shift.
Is that where we're going?
It didn't happen overnight. I think it's going to start to reverse itself. And I do actually think AI might help that.
Welcome to the Fermat Podcast. Today, we've got Christina Bifano joining us. Christina is a trend researcher, designer, educator, and cultural researcher with more than 30 years of experience. She got her career started in New York, working with household names like J.B. Martin or Nautica International back in the 90s. Now based in Barcelona, Christina works at the intersection between cultural research and education, helping both students and international brands uncover the possibilities of the future. She is currently the head researcher at 𝗏 and a consultant at Inquire Studios. She is also a part of the team behind Future Days, something she describes as a think tank or a Coachella for future thinking. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did, and thanks for joining. Cheers, Christina.
Cheers.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for lunch also.
No, thank you for lunch.
Did you like it?
It's delicious.
I've been looking at your profile for the entire week.
Oh no.
Preparing and thinking what I'm going to ask her. Such a incredible trajectory in fashion. One question that I have is, what even is a cultural researcher? What it is that you do at the core? How do you define it?
I think it's one of those terms that's kind of trending right now among people that used to call themselves trend forecasters. Right? There's a sort of, I feel like there's a move away from that title into what we actually really do, which is sort of scan the horizon of culture globally and understand what's happening now in the zeitgeist and translate that for our clients. So thinking of, what's happening in culture and how we can look at those signals of change and use them to strategize different kinds of futures, right? Different future scenarios, depending on who you're working with and what you're working with.
And you do this for small brands, for large brands?
Yes.
You teach this also?
I teach it also. Yes, so I feel like right now in my career, I'm probably mentoring more than actually working directly with a brand, because I work not just with students as a mentor, but I work with brands as a mentor. With 𝗏 𝗏𝗏𝗀, who's the founder of both 𝗏 and Inquire Studios, where I work probably more than any other of my freelance gigs. We decided early on that all the projects we worked with, we wanted it'd be more like teaching the people we're with how to fish than fishing for them, right? That old adage, like, give a man a fish or teach him how to fish, this kind of idea. So that really resonates with me because I love to support people in their journey. I don't think I have the answers to everything. I think I'm probably better at spotting ways and avenues that a person or a brand can move towards the path they want to go in.
And do you perceive yourself more as a researcher, educator, designer? What's your...
It's funny because I actually have in LinkedIn a sort of a phrase about that, but I don't remember it right now. Basically, though I'm trained as a designer, my background is in textile design. I'm working as a forecaster and a researcher. It's a main part of my work. And then teaching is kind of my passion. And I think I use teaching as a tool in everything I do. My parents were both sociologists.
Okay.
So I started very young doing social research in the summers and in the winter vacation with my mother, which at the time, when you did ethnographic research, you were kind of really going door to door and asking questions to people. So I always found people's stories extremely interesting. And even when I was a designer, what interested me most about designing is why somebody would buy the designs that we were making.
The why behind it.
Yeah, the why behind it, like what attracted them to these designs. And also, I thought it was very interesting why people chose the same exact thing but wore it completely differently. That always fascinated me. When I worked at Nautica as a designer, I was the head of the print design department, the surface design department there. I loved being in New York and seeing how streetwear, Nautica was used in very streetwear look, very oversized, had a lot of swag, very graphic.
This was in the
late 90s, early 2000s.
Okay.
And then I would go to Florida and our customers were like, guys, well, maybe you can relate, right? Guys with big beer bellies and a tropical print on a sailboat, retired, right? So your brand can be so much to so many people. And I found that part of research fascinating, always going into like consumer sentiments and emerging expectations.
You sort of trend research or the inspiration from your trends, the demographic, and then your intent as a designer, and eventually the one who was buying and using the garment was like different.
Yeah, it's very different, right? Because I think most people who work for mainstream fashion brands are told to look at the top of the top. We're told to look at luxury, what's on the runways, what's happening in Paris, in design with that in mind. But the reality is, for many of these brands, it's not your customer. And I find that really fascinating, this idea of the transition between designing for a high aesthetic and how in reality it gets mainstreamed. How does it go from really unusual and new conceptual to mainstream? And the creative directors at Nautica would tell us, dream big, do something really imaginative, and then it would get slowly kind of notched down and trickled down to being saleable.
Yeah, right.
Right? But if you didn't do that, if you started at the saleable,
let's sell,
then you're not a forward brand in any way. And you're, as a designer, it's quite boring, right? Because you already know what's out there. So why design what's out there? You always want to have some sort of aspiration.
Let's take a step back. How did you get started in the world of fashion, and why?
Since I was a child, my father's side of the family is Sicilian American. My grandparents were from Sicily, and my nonna was a super diva and fashion kind of woman. And I always wanted to get into fashion eventually, even as a child. I dreamed of going and studying in Italy, but I wanted to be a shoe designer. So I did all these, I went to a very classic high school.
Okay.
So after school and in the summers, I would take fashion design courses, but in Boston, which is still not a very fashion-forward place. It's not New York, it's not LA. It got to the point to go to university. I actually went to look at schools in New York City, and I realized that I was just too young and I wasn't ready for the big city. So I ended up studying photography and communication, which was always my hobby, my pastime was photography. So I decided to study that. And I did that for 3 years, 2 years at a smaller state university, and then I went to the University of Massachusetts, where I was exposed to textile design classes. Massachusetts used to be a big textile producer.
Right.
So they were still teaching textile design in some of the courses. Actually, it was the last semester I was there was the last year that was taught, and then it was pulled from the schools. And I think that's happened also in Spain, from what I understand, is that Spain used to be a powerhouse of textile design.
Mills.
Not as big as, mills like in Terrassa and everywhere.
Yeah.
And then the industry went overseas for the most part, or to other parts of Europe, France and Italy, which have a stronger industry. And now it's starting to come back. I know you know this, right? Because you have clients probably in Mataró, this area, that are doing a lot of production there. So, that's basically, I started studying textile design, and I realized that was actually very interesting for me. And my goal was to put the photography that I was doing on textiles. I wanted to do that creatively. So I ended up doing an Erasmus program in Florence, Italy, and did that. I went to a fiber art school and a photography school, studio art school, and I learned how to do these techniques that I wanted and was sewing them into my own clothes. But it was very micro,
right?
You know, and then I started doing textile design for other students, for their runway shows, and I decided I was going to quit the university that I was still paying to do the study abroad program for in Massachusetts, University of Massachusetts, and just work for a year so I could move back to Italy, because I had total culture shock. When I went back to the US, I was like, can't do this anymore. So I worked for a year, saved up my money, moved back to Italy, and did my first degree there. At the time, there was no, in Italy, they didn't give you a degree in textile design, unless it was science.
Didn't exist.
No, so you get a diploma, and with that diploma, I couldn't really do, it wasn't a real diploma, right? I could work in a factory in Cuomo, but I wasn't legal at the time. I didn't have my Italian passport. So I had to go back to the States, and then I was ready to be in New York. So I got my final degree from FIT, Fashion Institute of Technology, and had this incredible job while I was there, working at their archives, at their museum. And that's when I learned all about how designers would come in and they would borrow swatches from us or work in our color and our trend studio there. And that's why I really got into this idea of trend forecasting and how it worked, and I loved it. And in my first job out of there at JB Martin Velvets, JB Martin International Velvets, which is an old French company with mills in the US, Canada, Mexico, and France, I began incorporating and learning more about trends research and how to use it from fiber to finished product, which is what we did, fiber to finished product. And I got to work with designers for home, industrial designers, and fashion designers there. And that's really where I kind of cut my teeth in the fashion industry. Your
quote-unquote obsession, if I may, with trends and culture, and like it started, of course, with the family backstory, but at that archive in FIT, would you say that? Like that was the beginning of...
the archive at FIT really sealed it for me, because that was pre-internet research.
Right.
So you would basically have like Marc Jacobs coming in, or Anna Sui, or somebody from Geoffrey Bean coming in, Bill Blass, and
what
Karen,
did they ask for?
And they would say, like, I need 1930s florals. And
Okay.
it's like, why is everybody looking at 1930s florals?
And they all came like sort of at the same time, asking for the same things?
Per season and ask for similar things. And so I would always ask, why are you looking at this? And then you could start to kind of tie it into things that were happening in culture. Like it could be that there was a retrospective of the 1930s at the Met, or it could be a movie that just came out, or it could be something that was happening in politics that was resounding of that period of time. So once you start making those connections, you get the kind of bigger ecosystem of how trends, micro trends in fashion worked. Along with color, they would come in and research in the color library. We had this incredible color library of a room just full of color swatches from every grade and every type of material that you could make mood boards in. And I helped there too.
Fun.
Yeah, and JB Martin Velvets had a velvet collection there. So that was my kind of into JB Martin.
And then at Nautica, you spent there a few
3
years.
years of velvet, I was ready to move on. And I really wanted a fashion brand experience. And luckily I had a friend who was the head trend forecaster and did a bunch of other things also at Nautica, and she told me there was this position available doing print design. And that was also a great job. I was there for 3 years, and we had a very good budget, very good resources.
The brand was booming at the time.
Yeah.
How did you apply sort of your trend and cultural research ideas that you were starting to really enjoy at the time in Nautica, in that first kind of fashion brand job? Were you able to, like, did you have the budget?
From day one, from the interview, it was expected.
Okay.
You know, from the interview.
So you didn't bring it there like something novel, but they were like, you're going to do this.
Yeah, they give you, I think they still do this a lot in companies. They give you some time to develop. They give you a concept and you have to develop the collection. And if you pass that first test, then you're in the hiring phase, right? And in my case, I'm trying to remember, Richard Haynes was the head creative director. And now he's a very famous illustrator. Does a lot of the runway shows. And he said to me, I want to do this group called Bloomsbury Group, which was very not Nautica. I didn't really know much about the Bloomsbury Group at the time, but I ran from there right to the public library and started doing research. Mm-hmm. I pulled together some photocopies, some color palettes. I went to the newsstand, got a Vogue 𝗏𝗏 magazines, and started putting together concept boards. And I was supposed to have 2 weeks to develop a collection, but they called me the next day and said, hey, the designer just left. If you want this job, you have to bring in what you have now. And that was so great, that process, because I brought in what I had, and Richard said, did they show you what we were working on before? And I said, no, they didn't show me anything. And he said, well, I mean, come in and look. And we had this incredible, huge room with cork walls. And he had already started this inspiration wall.
And their mood board looked
like my mood board.
Your mood
and
board,
he said, like I had my doubts because you came from Velvet and nothing to do with us, but we're on the same page and we can communicate. I know you'll get it. And if what you don't know, you'll find out. And that's what I need, is just great communication. So that was a big lesson, because I realized that, it's not really fake it till you make it, but it kind of is. And you have to be a very, as a designer, and I tell this to my students all the time, like the importance of studying fashion history is extremely important. You need to know immediately what that brief is talking about.
It's not pop. It's not pop music. You need to look at the history.
You need to get the reference points quickly so that you can start working. Nobody has the time in fashion to explain to you who this person was or who that person was. If you're on board from day one and you get the aesthetic, that's the important thing. And from there you can learn everything else, So Nautica was like that, and it was a nice place to work in that sense, even though it was 60 hours a week of work.
I can imagine the intensity of a successful brand at the time. How do you think basically AI and the tools we have now change the work of these visual research, cultural research, trend research, or whatever? There's trend researchers or providers like WGSN that brands buy, and they're super expensive.
Right.
Is that still going to be a thing?
Well, I think everybody can do what WGSN does on their own if you learn a few simple tools. And AI helps a lot.
That's the headline.
With that. Yeah, I mean, it helps a lot with that. It's really just learning some basic things that you have to know and working at them. You have to work at it. The thing that you can't do is you don't have hundreds of experts around the world doing that research for you. So it's time constraints. And AI can help you a lot with those time constraints. Like years ago when I first started teaching trends research, I would have students dig into every single agency that does that and give me a report. What do they do? How do they do it? Where do they do it? Who is their public, right? Now you can ask AI to do those kinds of matrices for you and have them at your fingertips. So as a designer or a researcher, you can say, well, who's the person who's the best at really understanding retail experience? This agency. You don't need to do all this research about research. It takes a lot of that time away for you. And you can also get, visuals up there very quickly. And you want to get
Although it
your
sounds
concepts up there.
It sounds like the way you use AI or the way you see AI being useful for trend research and cultural research is more to automate the indexing, finding out some sort of the references, but not the visual side of it.
Well, no, I was going to move into that. But yeah, you could definitely think of, like I was saying the other day, I went to this presentation of Future Snoops. And
Future Snoops.
Yeah, they have AI within their trend platform now. And what's interesting is you can look at the trend reports and take things from the trend reports and use them when you are designing, say, a coat, right? Like, so you have a puffer coat you want to design. You can look at trend reports. That the example they gave was looking at, say, the new type of punk rock movements happening, you know, this kind of revival of past punk rock movements and what they look like now, and then go into that puffer coat and design a new type of plaid based on this kind of feeling, right?
So trend to design much faster.
Trend to design is faster. Yeah. You have it all right there in front of you. I think anything that can help you visualize like a flat sketch or put a pattern in repeat is amazing. That's like was the bane of my existence in Nautica. After Nautica, when I worked for years at an original design textile design studio, and I loved doing the concept pieces. But when I got here, that kind of work didn't really exist here. So I started freelancing for some companies that would always ask me to put my concept pieces in repeat, which I hated to do. Like,
very manual.
Me, it was just like tediousness of everything. Anything that can take away the tediousness and free you up to do the creative part is amazing. And I see AI as first giving you the concept of what you want to look at, testing that is amazing. You say, what do you think about this? Should we do this? You don't have to
internally.
Anything. Like at Nautica, I would have an idea. I would make a sketch, a collage of the idea. I would send it to a painting studio. They would paint a maquette, bring it back. I would say, can you fix it? They would refix it, take it back. Okay, again. Finally, I'd get the concept down to what I look like, show it to the designers.
How long would this process?
They would change it weeks and weeks, right?
Yeah.
And if you could take out that sampling stage, it's perfect, right? You know,
but even it's sampling on the sketch phase, not even on the garment.
Not even on the research. Yeah, like on the sketch phase, you could get a lot out, because I think I was saying to you before, you know, a lot of people that have to look at the designs you make are from the sales team or the merchandising team or the marketing team.
They haven't seen your mood board.
No, they just need to get an idea of what the collection's about so they can talk about it and prepare for it. They don't need a beautifully painted, finished product to get that idea out there. And we would spend a fortune at Nautica doing these things. I think that studios that can hand paint beautiful prints are highly necessary. But even they now are using AI to give simulations, because it is a slow and taxing process to paint a perfect design. And you don't need to see something finished
to buy it.
To buy it. No, you can say, okay, that's going to work. Make me the whole thing, and I'm done. So.
And this goes both for internal buyers, also for wholesaling, right? Did Nautica do wholesaling at the time?
No, I mean, if they did, I wasn't really involved in that. But no, we did. We were a licensee though, so that's kind of similar, right?
Yes.
So like anything I designed in menswear, I would end up translating into something like a beach towel or a shower curtain or a bikini for a kid. You know, like there was a trickle down of every design from the menswear department to all the other licensees.
Because we see at Fermat that our customers do use AI for that sketch review phase, all over print and placement print visualization, all of that you mentioned, and not only for internal sketch review, but also for selling on their B2B wholesale catalogs.
Right.
And it's a game changer, because like companies that used to sell on sketches can now sell on renders.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like, it's that they don't need to see your mood board to buy, or they can see your mood board to buy, because they need to see yours and 50 other brands on the same day and make like $1 million assortment decisions.
Right.
But then this takes me to my next question, which is, the timelines are getting shorter.
Right.
You no longer need that, 3 or 5 week back and forth on the sketch visualization or on the sample generation, because, you can send the manufacturer a much more accurate tech pack with a render, and get a much more accurate sample. Danny, which is our head of communication at Fermat, has studied under you.
Yes.
And he tells me you're also, maybe from your parents, interested in social behavior. Very interested in social behavior and a student of social behavior. What's going to happen when the timeline is super short? Like when everyone is Zara, basically. When every brand can be what Zara is and can go at their speed. Do you think our consumption will also grow at the same speed, at the same rate?
I mean, look what Zara is doing. It's kind of interesting.
They're moving luxury, right?
They're moving luxury. And I think you need to always read the room with your designers. Like you need to know as a company, am I going to follow a fad or am I going to invest in innovation?
Right.
Am I going to be somebody my designs are so good that people will buy them and they'll last years and I'll get these kinds of for life customers, or am I trying to be a Shane and put out party clothes? So it really depends on the brand and what its goals are. But I would hope that everybody who has the ability to do that would say, okay, we have shorter times to production, so maybe we should make some more time for imagination.
Okay, so on the before product creation side of things,
Yeah.
more creative, more collection planning, perhaps
Right.
more trend research,
Right.
because we can shorten
Right.
the.
To differentiate yourself from
right.
those people who are just following fads.
Okay, I understand. So because we can shorten the product creation stage, that doesn't mean we should ship faster,
Right.
but perhaps we can spend more time before.
Yeah. And like give your designers like in any industry at all do really well when they have breaks in between to refresh, learn, study, tap into culture,
People ask me, oh, guys, what you do, can we apply it to like cars? Like, well, how many Porsches does Porsche release in a year, Yeah. and then or Volkswagen or whatever, right? How many SKUs does fashion release in a month?
Right.
Thousands, and it's such different approach to building product or designing product. Understood. Does it worry you that the timeline gets shorter and we consume more, and the fast fashion kind of, the effect of AI in fast fashion, so to speak? As a researcher,
concerns me. No matter what tool is out there that's going to cause that to happen, to more production, concerns me. But we can also think of it as making so much less. I remember during COVID, there was this brilliant woman, this young designer who learned how to use AI to do a fully digital runway show of her looks.
With video and everything.
On a catwalk, and she learned how to do that. And she ended up getting a lot of sales for when COVID was over, even though she told everybody it could take more than a year for this to get
the collection doesn't exist.
Right? I love this idea, right? Like now you can see what it looks like on a person. I think Zara just launched even the other day where you can see the clothing on yourself.
Yeah.
Right? So these kinds of things I would hope, would reduce sample production. And if you have less sample production, you have less products. And if you have more time to dedicate, maybe we can go back to actual textile testing, which is something that seems with fast fashion gets abandoned. Like all the testing for wear and tear of the textile itself gets eliminated when we try and do things really quickly. And I think that was something I appreciated a lot at Nautica, because we didn't go so fast that a sample wouldn't come in and we wouldn't stress test it or wash it or see what was going to happen. So we wouldn't put pieces out there that were going to fall apart. And I think a lot of companies like Shane, are putting pieces out there that are going to fall apart. So
and people know it and buy it.
And buy it because they don't care, right? But I think if, one of the reasons why I like, for example, I try not to I buy a lot of used clothing. The reason why I like clothes from other eras is just because they're made better. I have clothes from the Victorian coats that are in better condition than something I bought recently.
Wow.
You know, so if brands can say, all right, we can automate this part, and with the time they're automating this, we can test all the textiles and the fits and everything like that and make a better product because we're eliminating this kind of rush to sample, then that's a huge plus for the fashion industry.
I've never heard this argument before.
Oh. Do you think it's valid?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very excited by it.
I was actually I wanted to ask you that.
It's not a shorter timeline, but it's moving the time somewhere else where it's more value add.
I think you just need to displace the time to things that are like better quality and transparency of through the whole supply chain.
You work as a teacher.
As a teacher, okay.
And in particular, do you let your students use AI? Quote unquote, let. Do you encourage it? How do you see, the ways of working has changed with these new tools? Is it the same as a new Illustrator, or is it completely different?
I do think we're at this period of time where schools need to commit. Mm-hmm. They really need to commit, because there's a big imbalance with students like Danny, who's very, very good at AI. And then you're in like class with somebody else.
Someday we'll interview Danny.
Who has great skills, but can't do what he could do. So you see his projects next to his colleagues' projects, and their colleagues can't catch up, right? So I think if you're going to allow everybody to do whatever they need to do for a great finished product, then those tools should be very accessible to everybody, especially in courses like a master's in fashion creative direction or so I also teach at a fashion design school in Poland called MSKPU, MSKPU, and they have some digital design classes. But
because in Barcelona you teach at IED?
I teach at Instituto Europeu de Design, IED, which has 2 campuses in Spain, 5 it's Italian originally, but we also have campuses in Brazil. And a lot of courses where you can learn great digital tools, but it's not equal. So sometimes you have courses where you're not using AI, it's not part of the course. If you want to do it, you do it. And I think some of the problems is like it is this shiny, pretty new thing out there that everybody wants to try and experiment with. And some people are not good at it enough yet. So when they try to experiment with it, everything looks like everything else does. It doesn't look new and it doesn't look good, right?
Yeah.
And all the time I say to students, couldn't you just have picked a picture off of Pinterest and it would have been better than this? Like, is this the best use of your time? I think that's the thing. If you know how to use it, you use it well. If you don't, it might not be the best use of your time. So I think there needs to be kind of a reckoning in design schools when it's going to be taught and what courses it's going to be taught, when it's the most useful. It's fantastic when you're doing trends and you're developing a future scenario of something that doesn't exist and you want to visualize it.
That's not on Pinterest, or maybe not all of it.
Yeah, like you want to talk about the concept of something happening in 2050. It's a great design tool for that. When you're thinking of far-term futures, what this could possibly be, what could this scenario look like if the world was like this? In the beginning, AI would make everything look like the Jetsons. Flying car. When you talk in the future, everything looked like flying cars. Everything looked like Singapore, right?
Yeah.
And now it's getting better and
Blade
better
Runner.
at imagining futures that look a little more realistic.
Yeah.
But it's good for that, I think.
Are you teaching actively with it?
I don't myself teach it. Danny actually gave me some classes in it because I felt like I needed to be more versed when I was discussing with students how they could prompt better. I'm very good at prompts. I'm good at. I figure that out.
Is that because you're good at culture?
I think it's because I'm kind of tapped into culture, but also I'm pretty good at copywriting and saying, for example, I want this to look like this photographer. I have a list of names in my head.
Of course.
So talking to students, like it's better that you have a list of names in your head of the photographers than you sitting there being like, make it look like this, make it look like that. If you're just using it for educational purposes, it's okay to look at the work of other people, but know who those other people are.
Yeah.
You
know their context,
Exactly.
what was going on politically at the time.
Exactly. You're not going to say, like, I want this photo shoot to look like an Annie Leibovitz photo or a LaChapelle photo. They're not the same people.
Right.
Like, you need to know I think it's more important to have in your knowledge base.
Like here?
Right. Like, who were the great people who are the cultural pioneers visually? Know who they are, what they look like, what that feels like. Get that whole thing in your head before you're just sitting there all day long.
Prompting.
Changing the prompt.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Very interesting. You're part of something called Future Days?
Yes.
What is it?
Future Days is actually a think tank.
Okay.
And an academy, an educational academy to teach futures thinking. But we have a big event every year. We do small events, but our big event is once a year, and it's like a living lab where we have speakers, workshops, artistic interventions, and we work toward making a desirable future for not just the city we're in, but the globe, and really democratizing the voice of what the future should look like. So we have people, in our first year, for example, we had futurists come from Maori tribes in New Zealand. We have futurists from the Amazon in Brazil. So a really diverse voices that talk about how to make the world a better place. For the first 2 years, it started in 2024, it was in Lisbon. And the first year, it coincided with the history of democracy in Lisbon. And it started from 2 ex-students from IED, from the design management department. And one is Catalan from Girona, Uri, and Mary, who's from Argentina. And he's sort of the co-founder, the head of the organization, and she is the curator for the event. But they both do everything. And Uri came to me at the beginning and said, hey, do you think you can help us get IED and other schools involved doing this event? So I spoke to IED. We were one of the early sponsors. IED was one of the early sponsors of the event, investing, which I think is great. They invest in their ex-students, in their projects. And we put this sort of, what we call it, a champagne event on.
Champagne?
That had a beer budget. And we created this gathering for 3 days of great thinkers all around the globe that work in future strategies.
So that was in Lisbon, the first year?
That was in Lisbon the first 2 years.
And now?
And this year we're doing in Copenhagen.
Copenhagen.
Yeah, so it should be incredible.
Is open, like who can come?
Anybody can come. I call it like the Coachella of future thinking. And we just announced our first speaker in Copenhagen, which is 𝗏𝗏, if I'm saying his name correctly. And he used to be at Space 10, which was the think tank for IKEA, a very interesting company. They closed a few years back. And he founded Modem Works. And I thought that would be interesting for Fermat in particular, because they're doing these, it's an office for design and innovation where they're dedicated to kind of envisioning what future thinking companies and institutions can do to thrive and like, pull out their potential. And aesthetically, they're very AI future looking, but also, with this kind of, I think the thing that I love about Future Days is that we talk about 2050, but everything's really grounded. Being grounded in the present and using the present as a tool to help understand what a positive future could be like is very important.
This is Copenhagen when?
It is in Copenhagen, June 10th to 12th.
2026.
2026 during Design Week. And I'll be a little bit more involved probably with the first day, which is the city immersion. A thing I really love about Future Days is always the first day we're out about in the city looking for signs now that indicate future change and relate to the things we're working on. So this year's theme is Currents of Tomorrow.
Currents
of Tomorrow. And if you watch on LinkedIn, or if you follow on LinkedIn or Instagram, you can learn a little bit more about the things we're working with.
Okay, perfect.
Hope you come.
I'm super happy to jump by. Yeah, for sure. It's not the first time I hear this future thinking, futures design. What is it?
I always, myself too, I find it hard to kind of just pinpoint what it is, but it is thinking strategically about planning for a further term future for your company, for governments. Our goal was working with governments on challenges they have. So in Lisbon, we worked with the government of Lisbon in their current challenges. What are these challenges? How can future thinkers help you to plan for a better future? To do with what their challenges, for example, were like concern for local artisans in the gentrification of Lisbon, which I don't know if you've been to Lisbon recently, but
I've been to Barcelona.
So yes, I was exactly going to say, like, it's kind of like what happened in Barcelona years ago, where you get this sort of blanding of
specialty
culture.
Coffees. Yeah.
Exactly.
What's going on, guys?
𝗏𝗵, the woman I work at 𝗏𝗏 Studios, she uses this term blanding.
Yeah.
You know, and I think
everything looks the same.
Everything's the same. Like all the coffee shops look like the fashion design stores. If you stand
concept stores. Yeah.
Right. Like if you stand on I think it's Provença in Passeig de Gràcia, you have Balenciaga, 𝗏𝗏, Golden Goose, right? All in this corner. Everybody has the same logo.
Right.
The same sans serif bold, right? And like they all look like coffee shops.
And 10 years ago,
right,
they had more personality.
Right.
Or 20 years ago.
This kind of, I think people in design have been talking many years about this. This is a long-term shift.
Is that where we're going?
It didn't happen overnight.
Right.
I think it's going to start to reverse itself. And I do actually think that AI might help that. You know what? Okay. So
tell me more, because I'm terrified basically by this. But not only in branding, it's also happening in food, in our city, it's happening with culture.
Absolutely.
I want to go to New York and experience New York, and I want to go to Barcelona and experience Barcelona. I don't want to experience New York in Barcelona.
Right.
I can take a plane.
Right.
So what's going on? Where are we going?
But I have to say, I happen to like how the bread tastes better now in Barcelona than it used to. But I think if we free our time up and we use that time to be more imaginative, then we can imagine how to be a little more unique again. And I think that might be, there is this kind of backlash to everything looking the same with AI, where people want to have, like, I think you probably heard this on TikTok or wherever, but like blurrier photos or things that can't.
Look a bit more rough. Yeah.
Right, or handmade things, textiles that you can feel, going back to our five senses, things that you can touch and smell. There has been such a massive amount of creative experiences that are not, that are in the IRL, right? Not on the screen. And I think that once we start getting used to this tool, that can free ourselves up to experience more in the real world, because things go faster in the digital world and we don't have to worry about it. We can start to bring our creativity into also the digital realm and do really incredible things digitally and incredible things manually in person. So I think we're at this moment that I think is scary for everybody.
Can we combine it with the tradition of the place, with the sort of cultural heritage of each place, and have it a bit more
I think
diverse
exactly
again?
That though, right? Yeah. Like right now I'm involved in this group called Cultural Connectors, and we have to do a presentation and a podcast about us sensing our places through our five senses. So I'm representing Spain in the sense, I'm not representing Spain because I'm Spanish or Catalan, I don't pretend to be either of those things, but I'm representing them as a love letter of the place I live, right? And so my love letter, I started to research through my five senses, what are the new interesting things happening, but that are rooted in this country, and site, I picked the Tres Chimeneas. There's projects like this that go all around Spain, where we're converting old abandoned factories into new cultural centers, cultural hubs. And that's going to be converted into a big video UX
I didn't
space. Yeah, you should look into what they're doing. It's very interesting. I don't know if you knew also Zara bought for their new headquarters all Sant Adrià up around there.
Really?
So they're moving their headquarters there. But
From Coruña?
yeah. No. The Catalan side.
The
from
Massimo Dutti.
Mataró,
Okay,
Mataró
yeah.
up there. So there is this huge project being inverted into a space that hopefully, the government said they need to work with the local government and make green spaces, clean up the pollution. All of those things happen. We're going to have some growing pains. But if in the end, that whole area has green spaces, that's a win.
For everyone.
Right? And it has more businesses where people can work locally. It's not polluting. That place is so polluted. So I think that is like a big plus.
Yeah.
But also, you have all what I noticed as I was researching, and of course I gravitate to this because it's my background, but I noticed there's schools now, IED in Madrid, for example, that are doing this master's course in artisanship and new technologies. So there's this new, Elizaba, many schools, 𝗥𝗹𝗽, all over the place, are doing courses that combine future thinking. Future Days is going to do a master's course in future thinking at LCI. So they're combining future thinking, artisanal techniques, right? Lots of young people are going back to learn all these lost trades.
Yeah, carpentry is having like a...
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful project in Asturias or Galicia. This woman is working with people that used to weave fishing nets and making products, like design products with them. They are gorgeous. So a lot of, I think, now you go, okay, what do I want to study? I want to do something really creative. You're going into schools and you have the ability to learn artisanship, like high craft. Loewe is sponsoring that course at IED in Madrid.
Okay.
So high craft and digital technologies, biomaterials and digital technologies.
Artisanship and craft doesn't have to be old and outdated.
No, it's all
and traditional.
Exactly, it's all a new version of everything, right?
Really good.
And I think those kind of new versions of tradition in Spain are going to look very different and very new. And now, like Spain is #1 in innovation in Europe.
Yeah.
It's the #1 spot for innovation.
Yeah.
And we think of it as just, foreigners think of it as just like flamenco paella.
Wine,
no matter
wine
where
and
they
tapas
are,
and
right?
beach. Yeah.
And they don't
Well,
know
look at Inditex. Look.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Like, it's on fire right now,
Yeah.
Spain. So I think now's the moment where people are really going to shine with that uniqueness. No one's going to care if they come and see matcha everywhere.
Absolutely. Or
that's not
branch
people
places everywhere.
Right.
Not we call them fork breakfasts.
I know where I am. I'm American. I love a good brunch, and forever I couldn't have one, so I don't mind. But I still haven't found one. I just
Some
found
are
brunch.
good.
I didn't find good brunch. I'd much rather eat where we ate today.
Yes. We will not say where we ate today.
We won't say.
It's a secret. You need to come to the podcast if you want to eat there. Christina, just to end it, and I think that was brilliant. What's the next leap that you see in fashion as it relates to all of that, both technologically and aesthetically?
Yeah.
I know it will be your opinion based on your research, but just feel free to share. Where do you think we're going?
Well, I can tell you the leap I want.
Okay.
Is that good?
Yeah, for sure.
I really want this move toward biomaterials. Like, I think it's incredible when you have huge brands incorporating algae-based yarns and materials.
Super exciting.
Right? Manuel Torres, the one who did the spray-on garments for 𝗥𝗹𝗽, that Bella Hadid video where he sprays
yes.
𝗥𝗹𝗽. So that's he's from here, from Spain, Manuel Torres. He invented that technology. I think these kinds of advanced technologies where we can make fashion more biodegradable or more planet-friendly. Will
it get to the end consumer?
Yeah, it takes a while. It takes a while. right? But I do think the public is very in demand and open for it, whether it's a mushroom-based fabric or, you know, any other more bio-based fabrics. I'm hoping that there's a lot of policies coming in right now, in France in particular, where there's going to be a lot of blockchain used for transparency, and you need to say where everything comes from. Those kind of policies can help Europe really set a higher standard if they commit to incorporating them. I went to a great symposium at 𝗥𝗹𝗽 on regenerative cotton, and there was Mango, Primark, H&M, Balenciaga in the audience, 𝗥𝗹𝗽𝗵, all these designers
mass market
there.
brands.
Yeah, and they were talking about their regenerative cotton projects, Mango being at the top. I mean, I think if you look at Mango as a scenario, they are really moving in a quite positive direction for a fast fashion brand, doing things that are, I think, beyond greenwashing.
Actual progress.
Yeah, actual progress. And I think if that keeps up, we have a very positive future. But the consumers need to stop at some moment and decide if they don't already have enough. That's a bit of a problem. You know, there's this kind of insatiable consumerism.
Well, it's always, I think,
in the world.
Yeah. We need to. There always needs to be a great next product that people really want to buy.
Yeah. And hopefully it's not a Labubu.
Thank you, Christina.
You're
it was
welcome.
very, very good chatting.
Okay. Thank you.
And I think we should invite you another time because I felt like we could stay here for hours.
No, that would be great. I would
Thank
love
you.
that. But your questions are great.
Just learning.
The vermouth helps, right?
Yeah.